speak as a parent. We've had great school boards in this. My name is Pat Vernon. I'm from College Township, and I've had 2 children go through the district. And we've had great school boards throughout my history in this school district for almost 40 years. And I've watched the meetings, listened to what's going on. I watched the election, participated in the election as a voter. And it seems to me this is kind of like a hockey game where Team A, the new team, has been ahead by 1 point. And all of a sudden, Team A's goalie had a heart attack. He's gone. Team B scored. We're tied. But the time just ran out. We're now in a sudden death overtime. And one of the teams is going to win here. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be like a team. It shouldn't be like a game, because I think it is up to the incumbents to find the compromise candidate put forth by the new people, because you're the 5. We need to find the person to replace that 5th person. It's unfortunate, and I really don't understand why Barney couldn't have been part of the vote. I mean, that would make the most sense, and most voters that I talk to feel the same way. I mean, there's another alternative. Maybe you already talked about it. You could reduce the board to, instead of 9 members, you could have 7 members. You could ask for a resignation. That may solve the issue. But I heard this thing about the high school project being the reason for the issue in the May election. And that was far, 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 far true from the many hundreds of people that I talk to on a door-to-door basis. We have another issue coming up that's even bigger and more divisive within the high school, and that's advisory. It's tearing the high school staff apart. It's a very unfortunate thing. It's like a leftover from the big new school. In fact, there was a letter to the editor that said, I believe it was by school board member Hutchins, or what was his name? The guy that lost. Hendrickson. Said that, I think in his article, if I remember it exactly, and I don't remember it exactly, but something along the lines of advisory in small schools will make the big new school feel small. The research doesn't show that. We're dealing with this issue. The new school board, and there will be a new school board when this 5th person is replaced, is going to have to deal with that issue of advisory. And as I said, it's much bigger as far as the teachers are concerned and education is concerned than what the new school of bricks and mortar were. Thank you.
Wilbur Hantel, College Township. To go to the question, and specifically to you, Hutchinson, the voters spoke in a loud, clear voice. And each one of you are responsible primarily to the voters. And any one of you who had also been up and running would not, on this last election, I can guarantee you, would not be sitting at this table today. Now, I agree with what Pat Vernon said. The people want change. They want the school board to be absolutely responsible to them, and that's who you're responsible to. You're spending our money, and don't forget it. And I think that it's up to you, the incumbents, who have to look at yourselves in the mirror and decide who you're going to go with, because these people were elected, and you have to stand behind them. And and in fact, I'm quite disgusted with you. You were going in through like a prosecuting attorney. And if we went down to 7, you would be the one I would suggest resign, because as I said at the Act 34 meeting, you're incompetent.
Top State College Borough. Y'all know I'm not a fire and brimstone person, so I'm just going to say what I have to say. First, I'd like to commend the entire board for having an open process for selecting a board member. It's a step in the right direction, and it's one of the things that most of the citizens from voting, it's one of the things that they voted on. They wanted to have more transparency, more accountability. Sometimes, I believe citizens have a right to see how government works and sometimes how it doesn't work. In this case, government is working. Whether you decide here today on a compromise or whether it goes to the court and the court decides, and it really isn't the court, it's an individual who's acting as an odd number to make a decision. It could have been anybody. It just happens to have to go to the court, from what I understand, according to legal procedures. So then they're going to apply their veil or their criteria for how things are going to work. But it is not a disaster. It is not a failure if it does go to court. At least personally, I don't believe that. Secondly, I know that nothing I say here today will sway some of you, because a lot of people tend to seem to be wearing their old veils, or the way that they were before. Example would be when I lived in the Netherlands. I moved to Germany from the Netherlands, and my movers were Dutch. And my landlady in Germany came out to speak to my movers and said, do you speak German? And the answer was, no, I don't speak any German. And then the Dutch guys came over to me and said, oh yeah, we speak German. We just still haven't forgiven them from World War II when they stole all our bicycles. And I think sometimes you just got to let some of this go. Third, a lot have spoken about a need for a compromise candidate, or one that would quote unquote heal the board. This is silliness. It's complete silliness. No person could ever accomplish that task. The community was pretty clear on what they wanted. Experience, that's all relative as well. Anyone who's followed this process, or anyone that sat out in the audience, should have an honorary doctorate in school board procedures anyway, just from watching what goes on. Most companies, when they look to hire people, they look to hire a winner. They look for a proven successful track record, not necessarily in the area, but what they've done. And most of the skills can be easily taught, so the ramp time really isn't that difficult. If you look at the line of questioning for the questions that came around here for the school board members, and I know we're not going to go through names and all that, but we had questions over here as to how involved would you be, i.e., at least how I read that was like performance-based contracting. Do you tell someone how to cut the grass, or do you just give them the requirements and let them cut the grass? You had questions about dedication to community service, how you interpreted the will of the people, how you build consensus and heal a rift. Strategic thinking question with the 3 options as to whether they're mutually exclusive or not, what skills you brought to the table, or to see if you had any ties, in the sense of to see if a normal person could serve on the board. I believe in giving feedback, and so really, during the high school debate, it was pointed out that we had 1 high school and 2 buildings. In this case, we have 1 board and 2 sides. There are some very different philosophies on this board right now, and you guys are going to have to figure out how to merge those philosophies, or you're going to consistently be at odds. And from what I can see, the 4 are the valuation of the voting public, the amount of change that will happen in our district and at what pace, i.e. open government, documenting business procedures, community input, things like that. The need to replace the lost skills on the board by a departing board member. And back to your point, sir, when you were talking about the CACs, it was really looking at when you were talking about trying to balance the CACs and appointments in previous meetings. You have a fairly good balance here. You've got a lot of people with a lot of experience, has been stated out, and a lot of folks that are very energetic and a lot of great ideas. None of you are wrong. And the last area is really, at what level does the board operate? Is it a strategic vision, or is it somebody who is allowed to ask a question as to how something operates down at the lower tactical level, and maybe look into things and provide comment? So in conclusion, I just say that these are very different views, and no single person is going to come in and be able to bridge all that anyway. So that's why I think it's kind of a fallacy. Any of the 14 people that applied for this job would have done a good job. The schools are going to still operate. Everything's still going to run. I mean, because quite honestly, the success of this district, you contribute to it, the teachers contribute to it, the administration contributes to it, the parents contribute to it. So I would just like to see you guys come to some form of consensus in the near future, because this is going to happen again. I mean, quite honestly, from the discussion that I've heard over the last couple of weeks, I mean, Bill Boyd could have come up here and been applied, and I don't think Bill would have made it past some of the criteria. So my recommendation is that, if it goes to the court, it goes to the court. It's time to get moving and focus on other things, the tasks that are at hand in the district. And I support some of you. I agree with some decisions, some of them I don't. And that'll happen in the community, throughout the entire community. But most of us just want you to get moving and get some things done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.